I'm currently working on the Zotac video right now. I have it currently running benchmarks on, well, a stress test on my TV set. So while that works out, I figured I'd film this. This is a video on how the shotgun shells work for the APS Cam870 Airsoft gun. This is for an Airsoft. But yeah, so these are pretty simple. You just unscrew that, shows you where the valve is. It's a simple push valve. Nothing too complicated. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit though, so you guys get a better view of that. So again, just boop. And normally you would not need to disassemble it this far, but I figure for those of you who are interested, do it. So the back unscrews. I did have to loosen this. Again, you should never have to do this, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. So here's your back piece. It has threading on it. It's got two little pins for unscrewing it, or two little holes, and an O-ring in the back. You have a washer that helps seal the O-ring against the I guess bolt. Then you have your actual filler tube, which is what fills the cylinder with pressure. There's some tiny, oh man, I'm not used to this. There are some tiny little holes right there that you might be able to see through. That lets the gas in through the valve in the front. And then, there we go. So here's your front O-ring, plastic O-ring. It fits in a little groove that is inside of there. You might be able to see it. You have another washer that pushes against that O-ring to keep the seal down. You have an internal cylinder. This feels like aluminum, which is something to note because they pretty sure this is not entirely aluminum. It might be. Actually, it probably is entirely aluminum. I take that back. But anyways, you got your internal cylinder. This pushes against the washers. So when you screw this all together, it pushes the washers together to create a tight seal against the O-rings. And then, again, you have your O-ring in the back and your other washer. These two washers are absolutely identical. There is no difference between them. Then you have your valve. And this is quite an interesting design. So this comes in multiple pieces as well. Your filler port is kind of like your normal filler port for a gas blowback gun, but it's got this tiny little pin. This is really hard to show you guys. It's got this tiny little pin here and a little tiny O-ring. And so this guy is what fills the gun into. And you might notice that that doesn't seem like a lot to hold pressure in. You're right. There's an itty bitty tiny spring that goes behind it, right there. Let me see if I can get that a little more centered. Right there. And then you have your entire valve assembly. And again, there is this tiny little hole on both sides that feeds into here. Or more specifically, this feeds into it. That fills the internal chamber up with CO2 or whatever gas you're using that's spinning, so that you can, fire it. Now again, normally you would not have to take this apart, but I figured it's interesting for some to see how it works. So reassembly is pretty simple. You have your casing, you throw the first O-ring in. I recommend having a dental tool nearby so that you can easily maneuver that O-ring into place. Then you take a washer and you drop it in. And then you take your chamber, you drop that in, and when you push it in, you can push in the washer so that that all assembles correctly. There's the O-ring right there, and there's your washer right there. Next step is to reassemble the valve. So for that, you're going to take your valve like this. And I'm actually going to zoom in again because it's really hard to see. So I'm going to take the valve like this, and then you want to grab your spring. And you're just going to drop it right inside of there. Then you're going to take your valve and you're going to start screwing it in. And you can screw it in by hand pretty easily. What I recommend is putting your nail in one edge of it and just spinning the back. And then you can check the spring pressure with a dental tool just to make sure that it's actually retracting and closing, and it is. So your next step, oops, wrong way. And so your next step is to drop it in. And so this goes in straight from the back, just like so. Then you're gonna put your washer in. Now the washer has a hole in the middle, of course, and that needs to go around the valve. So let me do that again so you guys can see. So, yeah, whoop. You set it in there, and you may have to hold the valve from the front, and there you go. And then your final step, assuming you didn't take the O-rings out of the back, which I did not, is you can just screw it on. It isn't reverse threading, I just do that so I don't risk cross threading. And I find that hand pressure is enough to hold this together, but again, usually will not have to take these apart. What I recommend for oiling them long term is you pop it open, you hold the valve stem to a side, and you just pour oil into there. You tap it so that the oil goes down, and then you push down the top, and that's how I store mine. And then before I fire them, I fill them with green gas, I fire them with nothing loaded, and then I'll fill them with CO2. And then you can just put the back on, like so. So one thing I do recommend for those of you who don't want to use the 88 gram cartridge is you can use 12 gram cartridges using an adapter like this. Oops. So this takes 12 gram cartridges and makes it so you can fill green gas guns generally. It's great with high kappas if you do the CO2 mod to the green gas mag. Honestly, there's not much of a point to doing except for convenience. But if you try and fill these normally, you can't quite reach down there. It doesn't reach the valve stem. But what you can do is take that off. It's easier to fill again, so I know. This, by the way, was good CO2, so that's why it was very loud. So that is how you load, and that's how you disassemble and load these cartridges. Again, if you're using a normal filler, you can fill from the top. I like this for firing in the backyard because I don't really care that I lose consistency after the first 12 loads. It works fine, and it's still fun to fire. If you're going to a field, I do recommend using the 88 gram or 90 gram cartridges because you'll have more consistent shot to shot for the first, I'm not even sure how many shots, a lot of them. Because the pressure will drop slower because there's more CO2 available. One thing to also note is if you're using this, if you fill 4 shells and then let this sit and then fill 4 more, it works very well. So, I just received a package, so yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. There's going to be more content on the Cam870 to come. I was expecting to do this video later, but I had the camera set up for today, and I figured since I was already doing the Zotac PC, I might as well do that. So, yeah. Have a good one, guys.